Picture this. It's October 1962. American citizens are frantically digging underground shelters right in their backyards. Kids are practicing nuclear air raid drills under their school desks. High above, military bombers loaded with atomic weapons are circling the skies nonstop, while deep beneath the ocean, Soviet submarines armed with nuclear torpedoes have gone completely silent. The two most powerful nations on Earth are locked in a standoff, and one single misunderstood order could literally vanish entire cities in fire within a matter of hours. Welcome to this Historical Explainer. Today we're putting on our Cold War historian hats to examine the terrifying true story of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
13. For just 13 days, the entire world stood on the absolute razor's edge of nuclear destruction. We often look back at history as something inevitable, right? Like it was always going to work out. But during these 13 days, human civilization itself came dangerously closer to complete collapse and annihilation than at any other moment before or since. So to really understand how we got there, we've got to zoom out first.
Section 1. The Global Chessboard. Following World War II, the geopolitical landscape was totally fractured. And as historians, it's absolutely vital we view both of these superpowers neutrally, treating them as rational actors who were trapped in a system of mutual fear. Both the United States and the Soviet Union genuinely believed the other sought global domination, and this created a terrifying status quo, built entirely on massive, world-ending nuclear stockpiles.
The crucial point here is understanding how this grand, global fear suddenly became highly localized. 90, that is the number of miles between the coast of Florida and the island of Cuba. To the United States, the geopolitical threat wasn't just some abstract idea across the ocean anymore. It was instantly tangible, sitting right in their backyard.
Let's look at the timeline to see how this builds up. In 1959, Fidel Castro takes control of Cuba and starts forming very close ties with the Soviet Union. The U.S. is absolutely terrified of communism spreading this close to home. So in 1961, America secretly backs an invasion attempt at the Bay of Pigs. It is a massive, embarrassing failure, and all it really does is push Castro to seek Soviet protection. Meanwhile, the U.S. had its own nuclear missiles sitting in places like Turkey, aimed right at the Soviets. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev wanted to balance the scales, so in 1962, he initiates a highly secretive operation to sneak nuclear missiles, soldiers, and equipment right across the Atlantic and into Cuba.
Section 2. The U-2 Discovery. Now, the Soviets thought America wouldn't notice their massive buildup until it was way too late. They were wrong. On October 14, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane flying way up high over Cuba captured undeniable photographic proof. Soviet nuclear missile bases were actively under construction. This discovery was a total bombshell, instantly triggering highly classified, frantic emergency meetings inside the White House.
Section 3. Kennedy's Blockade Strategy.
Inside those secret meetings, the political calculus was agonizing. Let's break down the impossible choices President Kennedy was facing. His military generals were demanding Step 1, which meant an immediate, direct airstrike or a full-ground invasion of Cuba. But Kennedy rejected this. Why? Because of the massive, completely rational fear that if America attacked Cuba, the Soviet Union would retaliate by attacking Europe. It would instantly trigger World War III. So Kennedy pivoted to Step 2, a naval blockade. It offered a way to apply intense strategic pressure without launching an immediate, irreversible strike.
On October 22nd, Kennedy went on television and revealed the crisis to the entire world. He announced this naval blockade, meaning American warships would literally form a ring of steel around Cuba to stop and search any approaching Soviet ships. As you can imagine, this public announcement caused instant global panic. Ordinary citizens, completely convinced the end of the world had just arrived, rushed out to build those underground shelters and hoard emergency supplies. But Kennedy's strategy raised one terrifying question. What happens if a Soviet ship simply refuses to stop? We shift right here from high-level political strategy in Washington to the highly unpredictable, terrifying military reality out on the open water. The entire globe basically held its breath. Military forces everywhere went on high alert. Soviet ships steamed closer and closer to the American warships. At the very last possible moment, several Soviet ships slowed down or turned back, temporarily avoiding a direct firefight. But don't let that fool you. The crisis was still boiling. Behind the scenes, Kennedy and Khrushchev were exchanging desperate, frantic back-channel letters. Both men were terrified of appearing weak to their own governments, but equally terrified of ending human civilization.
Section 4. Black Saturday. The tension crested in what historians widely considered the most dangerous day in human history, October 27, 1962. The real threat here wasn't just grand strategy anymore, it was micro-level accidents. On this single day, an American U-2 pilot was shot down and killed over Cuba. Military leaders in the U.S. screamed for retaliation. Meanwhile, completely by accident, a second U.S. jet drifted into Soviet airspace near Alaska, causing Soviet fighter jets armed with nuclear weapons to scramble. Global forces were on maximum alert. The whole situation was rapidly slipping out of control.
But the absolute most terrifying moment was actually happening underwater. American warships had detected a Soviet submarine, the B-59, and began dropping warning depth charges to force it to surface. Now, zoom in on this terrifying reality. Inside that submarine, it was sweltering hot. The crew had lost all communication with Moscow days ago. The sailors, hearing massive explosions above them, genuinely believed World War III had already started, and they were armed with a nuclear torpedo. The captain, ready to fight back, actually ordered the nuclear torpedo to be prepared for launch.
But here is where history pivots on a dime. Soviet protocol required 3 senior officers to agree before launching a nuclear weapon. 2 of them said yes. 1 man said no. Vasily Arkhipov. Amidst the claustrophobia, the unbearable heat, and the absolute panic, Arkhipov firmly refused to authorize the launch and somehow convinced the captain to stand down. Really think about that for a second. 1 man's veto, miles beneath the ocean's surface, is literally the reason we are all here today.
Section 5. The Secret Deal.
While Arkhipov was saving the world underwater, a delicate diplomatic resolution was being forged back on land. Publicly, the Soviet Union agreed to remove their missiles from Cuba, and the U.S. promised not to invade the island. But privately, in a crucial back-channel compromise, Kennedy agreed to remove America's nuclear missiles from Turkey. Both sides got what they needed to save face. On October 28th, the crisis officially ended. Diplomacy and compromise, not military might, defuse the ticking time bomb.
Section 6. Lessons from the brink. Humanity survived, but the era left a massive, lasting psychological trauma. Following the crisis, both Washington and Moscow realized just how dangerously close they had come to the edge. So they created a direct communication line, the famous Washington-Moscow hotline, to ensure leaders could instantly talk during future crises. The crucial takeaway for us today is this: power without communication becomes dangerous. Fear without understanding becomes deadly. The true threat in 1962 wasn't just the atomic bombs themselves, it was human pride, aggression, accidents, and basic misunderstandings.
Which leaves us with this final, chilling thought. In the end, Kennedy and Khrushchev's willingness to compromise absolutely saved us. But humanity was also incredibly, unbelievably lucky. Today, thousands of nuclear weapons still exist out there. Global political tensions are arguably as high as they've ever been. So we have to ask ourselves, have we actually learned the lessons of October 1962? Or are we simply relying on luck to survive the next 13 days on the brink? Keep that question in mind as you look at the geopolitical world today. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.